What's up, guys? I'm KaelanKhaos, and this is going to be my first Wi-Fi Battle upload. I know that the quality isn't as great as it could be, most like other YouTubers and stuff, but you know what? I think it's decent enough, because you don't have to see the high-quality stuff, since I'll be kind of talking in the background. This is a UU game against some kid from Smoke, and I think his name was like haxxhatred, or something like that. I mean, he brought some stuff that isn't UU, but, you know, it was whatever. I was just looking for a battle and everything, so let's play this one back. So, I believe I'm probably either going to lead off with my, I was either going to lead off with Rotom or Empoleon, because my Rotom's my Trick Scarfer, and Empoleon sets up the rock, so he traces, like, my Levitate, which, you know, I'm fine with, because I'm just going to trick away his, what I thought was Inviolate, but I get a wide lens, or something, I think it was, or a zoom lens, and then he goes for the Zapkin. I was like, oh, okay. And he switches right out into, his Golem, and then I think I either trick again, or I just go Overheat. I just go Overheat, I think, just wanting to hit anything that comes in really hard, because, you know, I have a good amount of special attack invested, I think, in this thing. I think it's full special attack, full speed, but I hit his Golem really hard, and then I have the HP Grass, so I just decide, you know, why not go for it, and I'm able to, you know, basically take this Golem out and get him from being able to set up his Rock, which is good, because I have a few Rock-weak Pokemon, such as my Weavile and Rotom. And he brings in this Mismagius, and this Mismagius is the thing that gives me the most trouble. But I trick away the zoom lens, figuring, well, whatever he has could be more helpful, like leftovers or something, or whatever. But I get a spell tag. I was like, okay, this guy's kind of running the unusual item. And he curses. I was like, oh, curse. I'm like, fantastic. So I take a pretty decent chunk of damage from being afflicted by the curse, and then I decided I'm just going to get out of there, because I'm -2 special attack, and I go into my Empoleon, and he subs on the switch, I guess predicting me to switch. I could have just stayed in and fired off a Overheat, but whatever, and so he Pain Splits to get his health back, so he could curse again without dying, and my Empoleon loses, like, a really good chunk from it. But I just had to go Rocks, because, like, I'm like, whatever, and this upcoming turn, I'm just going to decide to roar him out, because I don't want his Mismagius behind the sub, and I figure when it comes back, he'll take Rock's damage, and depending on what him and I could have easily countered it and killed it or whatever, because it's at such a low amount of HP now. So I roar it out, and he goes into his Machamp, and I'm automatically like, well, I'm going to get drilled with a Dynamic Punch, so I think I'm going to go ahead and hop right out of there and switch into maybe my, I don't really, I'm trying to remember what I switched into. Oh yeah, my Deoxys Defense. Thinking that I'm going to take a Dynamic Punch, alright. But he bulk ups, so I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, I've never seen bulk up on Machamp since starting competitive play. I'm like, okay. So I start littering the field with spikes, because I'm like, well, he's bulking up. I'm fully invested in defense. I'm like in bold, so he shouldn't be doing that much. But after one bulk up, like, I was surprised. He, like, holy feck, like he did like a decent chunk to me, considering that I'm resisted to it anyway. And then, like, I think he goes payback this turn and almost knocks me out after this. Like, after I hit myself in confusion, and I was like, oh crap, I'm like, so I think I decided to switch into my Empoleon, because I was like, I'm just going to father this thing, because I think I can save Deoxys later in the match, so I just switch out. I'm like, I'm not going to let him die yet. Or did I go in the Rotom? Yeah, I went in the Rotom. I don't know why I went in the Rotom. Oh, I went in the Rotom to take a payback, because I figured he wasn't going to stop paybacking, and I figured that's the only thing Rotom should be able to take coming in. And I just fire off an Overheat, which I expected to kill, being Stab and max special attack and everything, but I don't. He lives on like this little smidgen. Well, not a smidgen, it's like a decent chunk of it, but I was like, really? And he just drops you with a dynamic punch. I was like, fantastic. I'm like, great. So I lost Rotom right there. And I think that's the first Pokemon I lost. But I go into the Weavile figuring Weavile's way faster than the champ, and I can just OHKO with an Ice Punch. But he saves it, and I didn't understand that because he was so low on HP. I mean, I could understand switching into Hitmonchan because, you know, it can take, like, Dark-type hits, but why would I go Dark-type on Machamp being as it's resisted? So I didn't understand that, but, you know, it was his play. And I hit the Hitmonchan, and I knock it really low. And if I had Ice Shard, he would have died, but on this set, I'm not running Ice Shard. I think I'm running, like, Ice Punch, Night Slash, Brick Break, and one other move, maybe Pursuit. And here's where I took my opportunity, because I'm like, he can't kill me with a Mach Punch, so I switched into Deoxys. And he's really low on HP, and I figured he's just going to go for another Mach Punch, or he's going to Drain Punch or switch. So I said, right here is my good time to recover, so I can save my Deoxys from dying, because I really kind of need it because my defense wall and, you know, with my spike, like stuff at my spikes. He Rapid Spins. I was like, I knew that Hitmonchan got Rapid Spin, but I was like, oh, I'm like, look at that, he's running Rapid Spin on his Hitmonchan. I'm like, that's kind of innovative. I'm like, at least someone does it. And he switches out right here, and he goes back into Mismagius, predicting my Seismic Toss, I believe. And I was like, fuck, I'm like, I should have just gone for the spikes, because I kind of knew he was going to switch Mismagius, but I didn't want to over-predict and let that Hitmonchan stay and just Rapid Spin or knock me with more damage. So I think I switch here in Death Father and Empoleon, because I figure it's the best thing to Death Father. It's at lower health, and depending on what he does, he Pain Splits right here, and I'm able to survive it. And I think I just go for Rocks this turn, wanting to kill that Hitmonchan off, but I think he switches and saves it knowing I'm going to rock, like go for the rocks here, and he saves that thing. I'm like, fuck, I'm like, now he's going to Rapid Spin him away. I'm like, so I was like, oh, I'm like, god dang it. So I think I'm just going to go Scald here and just try to get rid of this Hitmonchan really quick, because I'm sick of him Rapid Spinning away my hazards. I'm like, I need some of these hazards to, you know, actually be able to take huge chunklets out so that some of my other sweeper-esque Pokemon can come in and just drop them, like breaking any potential Focus Sashes, Jurdies, whatever. Even though he doesn't have any of that on his team, you know, it's pretty much just the same thing in the game. Or it's just this massive damage to your Pokemon, like this Togekiss that comes in here. And this thing was like the bane of my existence, because I'm like, oh my god. The second I saw Nasty Plot, I was like, fuck. I just went Stealth Rock. I'm like, screw it. I'm like, Mismagius will take a good amount of damage. Maybe I can get this stupid Togekiss out of here with, like, a Roar. I think that's what I go for, too, this turn. I Roar, even though he Air Slashes me. And so I flinch. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, this thing's going to flinch me to death, isn't it? And then I think I break through here and roar him out of here. I'm like, go away now, okay? So he gets roared out of here, and I was like, thank God I get flinched again. And it goes out into his Porygon, and I'm like, I'm going to die right here, so I'm just going to Death Thunder and Empoleon with it and die off. It's done its job. After he traces my Torrent, I'm like, that's pretty much useless on Porygon. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that Porygon doesn't run anything that, you know, needs Torrent boost for it. And he Charge Beams. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, he's going to try to set up with this thing, using me to die. And he gets a special attack raise and a crit. Crit didn't matter. I would have died. I was such low HP, even though I'm a special wall. And so I go into my Roserade, because I'm like, this thing is like, it's got a sash, and I have toxic spikes on it and everything. And right here I go for the Sleep Powder to try to Sleep Powder Porygon, because it's a huge pain to my team. And he predicts that and goes into his Machamp that has a Lumberry. And I was like, fuck you. And so right now he's going to try to predict me to Sleep Powder again. He's going to go into Porygon, trace my Naturals here, which was a smart idea in the long run. and it was a really good play, and I commend him for that stuff in that play. But I went Sludge Bomb because I was like, I just want to get rid of that Machamp. I'm like, and I get the Poison Axe here too, after doing a really good chunk of damage to him. And so I was really happy about that because I'm like, screw this Porygon. I'm like, it's going to die off to another thing, like Sludge Bomb. So I'm like, I'm just going for it because this sets Toxic Spike, Sleep Powder, Sludge Bomb, and Leaf Storm, I believe it is. Right here, he brings in his Mismagius. He's not going to be able to live a Leaf Storm, and I know Ghost resists that, but I think he baited me into doing that, and he went into his Machamp to Death Fodder because he knew he was going to lose this thing right here. Like, his Mismagius would have died to it. He barely lives Rock's damage. He gets hit with my Leaf Storm. I go to -2. I'm like, well, that kind of sucks. I'm like, I just wasted a full powered up Leaf Storm on, like, this Machamp. And now he goes into this Mismagius thinking, with a -2 Leaf Storm, I think he thought I was defensive, that he could live it. But I'm offensive, so I'm able to drop him with a -2 Leaf Storm anyway. So I kind of felt bad because I was like, well, your play didn't work out there, but I'm like, sorry, that's the way the game goes. Sometimes your predictions are right, and sometimes they're not. And he goes into his last, which is his Togekiss. And at this point, I still have my Sash intact, so I'm just like, I'm going to Sleep Powder him and then switch on so I have Unminus, and then come back in and hit him with Sludge Bomb stuff. He T-Waves me. I'm like, I'm about to get hit with some Air Slashes. I'm like, I'm not staying in here. I got the natural cure. I can get a second chance of getting off my, my freaking Sleep Powder, so I'm like, screw it. I'm like, just stay in. And then he hits me with this Air Slash, and I'm like, with my Weavile after I, predicted that and switched, and then he just runs because he knows he's not going to be able to stall me because I still have Deoxys and Roserade and Kingdra and Weavile, and he knew I'd Ice Punch him first. So that was, my first battle upload, and I know it wasn't the greatest quality, but, bear with it. Eventually it'll get better. Well, like, comment, rate, subscribe, whatever. It doesn't really matter, Hope you just enjoy this upload. Peace.